In the middle of February, I asked a journalist friend of mine to break the story on my lawsuit. I had just gotten home from vacation and I needed to immediately distract myself. I was not prepared for the response that I got. It went live on a Tuesday night, and by Friday morning, I was overwhelmed. I had been public about my detransition for about 2 years at this point, and I'd never had a problem with it before. But suddenly it was kind of like I could hear this sound that had probably been there the whole time, and I'd never really tuned into it before. And it sounded something like this: Jerry, Jerry, Jerry. For some of you, I might need to provide some context. Jerry Springer was an American talk show that ran from 1991 to 2018. It was known for covering controversial topics such as adultery, incest, cross-dressing. The guests were often hostile, they got into fights. When the audience got particularly excited, they would chant Jerry's name. It was basically a televised freak show. So you know where I'm going with this. I had this overbearing feeling that every single person that has ever known me was all talking about me at the same time. All of them learning that in my early 20s, I had a mental health crisis in which I delusionally believed that I was the opposite sex, and then went forward and pursued surgeries and cross-sex hormones in order to look and sound like a man. I've compartmentalized that really well, but in breaking what anonymity I had left, it really hit me all at once that I have reached the point of no return. There is a possibility that being a walking freak show is going to be my brand for the rest of my life. So how do I proceed with my dignity intact? My mind went into emergency shutdown mode. I started ignoring new media requests. I canceled every podcast interview I had planned. I certainly throttled my own crowdfunder. And that felt better. The noise got quieter, but I was feeling extremely self-reflective. And I was in two minds over canceling everything. It felt like a test between two of my values, my sense of justice versus my sense of self-preservation. Should I be proud of myself for being assertive and drawing a boundary? Or should I be disappointed in myself for dropping out early and being a coward? About a week after I shut everything down, I watched an interview of a detransitioned woman. It was an old interview, I'd seen it before, and no one in it really did anything wrong, but I was watching it after being more jaded than I ever had been before, and I hated it. I hated that we provide the 3 pictures before, during, and after transition to really spell out what happened. I hated that her life has been flattened by this visualization of female to male to female. The people she needs to convince don't know what's happening at all. The people who do already have their minds made up. She has about 7 minutes to provide the context of who she is as a detransitioner, which is predicated on the audience knowing what transition is as well, before explaining what she's arguing for in a niche field of medicine and why regular people should care. She has her work cut out for her. And I'm angry because her qualification is her lived experience of what is arguably medical trauma. She's a layperson who did her own research. She doesn't have a PR team behind her. She hasn't been trained in public speaking. She's been harmed by the people who swore an oath not to, and she's not even done recovering. And the weight that she has on her shoulders. She's impressive as hell, but she should not have to be there. My impulse in that moment is to pull her out of there and put her somewhere where she'll never have to do anything like this ever again. And I realized 2 things. One, that impulse is why I went public in the first place. I can't save her, but I saved someone else from having to do what I did. And 2, I'm not a coward for wanting to save myself. We shouldn't have to be here. There shouldn't be such a thing as detransition advocacy. It is incredibly messed up that healthcare is doing so poorly that victims of malpractice, negligence, misdiagnosis, iatrogenesis, insert your word of choice, have to beg to be taken seriously. And it isn't being taken seriously, so there's a sense of urgency. And that sense of urgency means that most public-facing detransitioners are doing advocacy while they're still in the process of healing themselves. So instead of fully recovering from everything that they've been through and then stepping forward after finding their feet, most of them are still very unstable. And there is nothing stabilizing about going public. Now you're entering the discourse, which means you're inviting unreasonable levels of scrutiny upon yourself from pretty much everyone, including the people who claim that they're on your side. You're going to be surrounded by people, the majority of whom have never transitioned themselves, but all of whom seem to think that they understand why you did it better than you do, which effects hormones did or didn't have on you, and whether or not you passed. People will demand every detail of your story from you. There are ones that will make a snap judgment of you and become obsessed with catching you in a lie. And there are ones that will listen to you, but maybe feel like their sympathy entitles them to details that you aren't ready to share yet. You can do everything right, and people will still criticize you. You can talk to all the right people, and when the wrong people inevitably use your story without permission, you're going to be told that you should have known better. Because of the ideology attached to the negligence, there will be people that will never fully trust you. You used to believe the bad thing, and therefore you are in danger of believing the bad thing again. To these people, sometimes you're a helpless victim, and other times you're a former cultist. They will use your story in one breath and weaponize it against you in the next. They're also ruthless against the people who still do believe the bad thing, and they will conveniently forget that you have a lot of the same experiences as them. So be prepared to watch people who have had the same surgery as you be called degrading nicknames like zipper tits and have graphic post-surgery results posted in your replies as if you don't know what's happening. People on all sides hold standards of purity, accuse people of guilt by association, and publicly shame the people that they think aren't doing activism in the right way. It is imperative that you are able to trust your own judgment because you will not be able to stay grounded without it. Throughout it all, you might get placed next to people who have real credentials, and then you feel like you have to keep up with them and you worry that you might have said something the wrong way, and you need to get better at this because this is the only thing that's giving your life meaning. When the truth is you're an autistic trauma survivor with no training and a frail support system, and if anyone is expecting you to be anything different, they're going to be very disappointed. People keep asking where all the detransitioners are when really it is surprising that anyone would willingly submit themselves to this. We shouldn't have to be here. I am here though. I don't regret being the canary in the coal mine. It taught me who I am, what I value, what my limits are. It gave me real life examples of my own courage. I came into the discourse trying to manifest nuance, and I got it for myself. There has never been another point in my life where I unconditionally care about so many people with so many different perspectives. Before a couple of years ago, nearly all of my conflicts ended in the dissolution of the relationship. Now most of them end with a mutual understanding that both of us are good people, and maybe we had a miscommunication or one of us overreacted, usually me. I grew up with a lot of unhealthy beliefs about myself, the most enduring ones being that I'm irredeemably unlikable and even repulsive. But I stood up and demanded to be taken seriously, even as people laughed in my face, declared me a bad person, and called me a freak, a thing, and an it. And the words don't hurt anymore because I know they're wrong. It's not all bad. This is the most personal growth I've had in years. But still, advocacy should not be a step in the healing process. We shouldn't have to be here, but we do have to be here. The question I'm concerned with, though, is do I have to be here?